Chapter 1, 21, Primary Challenge Math. So if we were to draw this in our Singapore model, we'd say we have a whole n. I want to find out what that is. But we know that if we have just a half of n, and we take away 8 from that, it equals 20. So we say, well, the first thing we want to know is, well, what if we had that half of n without the 8 taken away? So we add back the 8 that got taken away. So now we have a half of n equals 28. So if the half of n is 28, then the whole of n, it would be a 28 in this one, is going to be 2 times 28. It's going to be 56. So if we look at the next one, you see that we have a little bit more work to do. So we have to add these fourths of n together. And so you could think of it this way, that you have an n, box of n, you don't know what's in it, but you know that everything n has the same thing. And you say, okay, well, I've got a fourth of n, and then another fourth of n, and another fourth of n. So when I put those three together, now I have 3/4 of n. So I have 3/4 of n, and then I put together the 8 and the 5. So 3/4 of n plus 13 equals 16. So what I have here, plus 13 equals 16. So I say, well, what about, how much is this without the 13? So I subtract 13 from both sides. I say, I want to know just what the 3/4 n is. And that tells me that, well, 3/4 of n is equal to 16 minus 13 is 3. So these three are equal to 3. That would mean each fourth is 1. The last fourth is 1, so altogether n has 4 in it. And so if we put together 1/8 n with 7/8 n, that gives us a whole n. So now we have a whole n, and we put together 9 plus 9 to get 18. So a whole n plus 18 equals 20. So this box that has n in it, plus 18 equals 20. We want to know what's in the box. So if we take away 18 from both sides, say, oh, well, in the box without the extra 18, it must be 2. So n equals 2. And let's, always a good idea to check your answer. So we'll say, well, 1/8 of 2 plus 9 plus 7/8 of 2. So I'm just putting in a 2 wherever n was, plus 9 equals 20. Well, 1/8 of 2 is a fourth, plus 9, and what's 7/8 of 2? Well, 7/8 of 2 is 14/8. 14/8 is the same as 7/4, plus 9 equals 20. And if we put together a fourth and 7/4, we get 8/4 plus 18 equals 20. But 8/4 is 2. 2 plus 18 equals 20. Put those together, and we do our happy dance because we've solved it correctly. Next, let's take a look at 3/4 n plus 3/4 n. What would that mean? So that would mean out of this box that you don't know how much is in, you have 3/4 of one box, and then you have another box going to have the same amount in it. You just have 3/4 of that. So altogether, you have 6/4, 1.5 boxes. 6/4, you can either say 1.5 n, or you could say 3/2 n. So we say 1.5 n, or 3/2 n, take away 10 equals 35. We want to know what it would be without taking away, so we say, well, what if we add 10 back? That would be how much it was before you took anything away. So 3 halves n equals 35. So if you think about that, what you're saying is I have an n, and then from the other n I have half. So I don't have this part. And altogether, sorry, 35 plus 10 is 45. So altogether, this part is 45. And so if you think about that for a while, you say, well, if this was 20 and 10, what would that be? So finally you see that, well, if I put 30 as n, then half of n is 15, 30 and 15 is 45. So you go from having 3 halves n equals 45, and the other way you could solve it is you could say, well, I'll multiply everything by 2, so I'll just double everything. So now I have 6 halves n, which is like 3n, equals 90, and I divide by 3, and I get n equals 30. Okay, so we want to prove that. So we say 3/4 of 30 minus 10 plus 3/4 of 30 equals 35. I'll switch to red here. So 3/4 of 30, well, a fourth of 30 is 7.5, so 3/4 is 22.5 minus 10 plus 22.5 equals 35. So we put these two together and we get 45 minus 10 equals 35. 35 equals 35, and we do our happy dance. This last one's a little bit different, and so we say, well, we want to know what the minus 2n is, and there's different ways you could do it. And so if you're a little bit shy about working with negative numbers, what you just can say is, I don't want to take, instead of taking away 2 boxes, let's add 2 boxes to both sides. So I add 2 boxes to both sides. And now I have 5, so I take away 2 boxes, but I add 2 boxes. So that cancels out. But if I do that, I have to add 2 boxes to this side. So I say 5 is like having 2 boxes plus 10. But I want to know what just the 2 boxes is, so I'm going to take away this plus 10 from both sides. And now I end up with a negative number. So minus 5 equals 2 boxes. Well, how much is in each box? So I'll just divide by 2. And there's minus 2.5 minus 5 halves equals n. If I put that back into the equation, I get 5 minus 2 times minus 5 halves equals 10. 5, well, negative times a negative is a positive, so I get 10 halves equals 10. But 10 halves is just 5. 10 equals 10, and I do my happy dance.